You guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. My internet at the house is down, so I'm at the restaurant, just so you know. And there's some guy next door that's sawing every now and then, just so you know. And there's traffic going by, making noise, just so you know. All right? But anyway, the first day I usually just go over the syllabus and things like that anyway, so it's fine. Okay, I'll screenshot this in a the first day I don't count lates or anything like that. Okay, I'm gonna go over the syllabus a little bit, materials a little bit, and just give you an overview, and that's about it, okay? So let me pull this up. And the other thing is, this is restaurant Wi-Fi. So far it's working fine, but I never trust restaurant Wi-Fi, okay? But I wouldn't mind doing my class out here more, look. Isn't that cool?
I'll admit it's nicer than being locked up inside this depressing room I'm in.
Well, I'm sick of being inside, period, man. Starting to make it cloudy.
I think we all feel that way right now, yeah.
Well, I'm used to being out and about all the time, man. I'm never inside. Or at home, really. Okay, let me share my screen with you. Oh, crap. Oh, wait. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
The syllabus, you can see it?
No, I don't see it. Oh, no, wait.
I can see it.
Okay.
I can see it.
Okay, so basically what we're doing in here is it's all traditional. We're gonna go through watercolor gouache. We're gonna go through watercolor acrylic gouache, and then we're gonna start talking about how we can combine those into mixed media. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
The main point of it, okay, there's a couple things in here. This is a mechanics class. One of the things that I've seen over the years with when I get students from painting and things like that is they just don't know enough about paint handling. They don't understand brushwork. They don't understand any of that kind of stuff. There goes the guy next door. Hang on. So I thought we really needed a good media technique class. So on certain projects, I'm okay with people going and finding a drawing and using that as a starting point because I'm really more concerned with the paint handling, okay? The first project we're gonna do, which is a children's book, 2-page spread, that I want you to do everything. We're gonna go through the whole process of that. We're gonna go through the drawing of it, the multiple overlays of it, building it, transferring it, stretching the paper, and then painting it, okay? Because you have to understand all that stuff if you're gonna be using, and we'll talk about things like why you use watercolor paper. Like you'll see, like I have a sketchbook that I gotta get my sketchbook. You guys, give me 2 seconds. I forgot to take my sketchbook out of the car, okay? All right, this stuff right here, this course objectives, it's pretty boilerplate. A lot of this stuff is boilerplate stuff. This is just out of the curriculum thing. It's designed to be very, I'm gonna strangle that guy, broad, okay? So I don't really feel like it's relevant for us to go through that right now. This stuff is relevant. Anybody misses first day is dropped, which doesn't make any sense because you guys are all here. Missing more than one meeting in the first 2 weeks, get dropped. Attendance is a big factor in your grade. And I have here 4 unexcused absences. I need to change that. It's 3 is, or not absences. 3 lates to me is 1 absence, okay? Phones, you know, that's the obvious stuff. Don't be sitting there looking at your phone while we're in class. And then here's my grade scale right here. Very simple, it goes in 10% increments, okay? This is on campus stuff. ADA, emergency response, that's really on campus stuff. And then it has this academic honesty thing. Again, that's a boilerplate thing. In here, we're gonna be using images appropriated from the internet and things like that here and there. Who cares? We're not putting it out to sell it or anything, so it doesn't matter. We're just using it as an exercise, okay? Okay. We'll have this is the wrong blog, I'll change that. It's s4ai.blogspot.com. I'll change it. We'll have a Google Drive. What's going to happen is as you're doing things, once we get going, what's going to happen is you're going to get a Zoom meeting on the announcements that usually the day of class, after the class, but I have a lot of classes right now, so it might take me a day. So you have an edited version of that. Then I will put a word that just says folder. You click that, and that's going to be the folder you put your work in for the next class. And I like to have that in there at 1/2 hour before class. Does that make sense? So in this class, we want it in here by 8:30. Okay, after 8:30, I don't, because I need time to download them and all that stuff. Because I download them onto my computer, and then when we're in class, I'll jump over to my Cintiq and I'll do overlays on it. Okay, in class, I usually do that with Trace, but I can't do it that way, and it works fine for that. And that'll just be correcting drawings and things like that. And I have a 3-part setup in my office, okay? So if anybody's wondering how I'm doing this, because it's traditional media, I have this laptop, then next to my laptop, I have a Cintiq for doing like corrections and overlays. And then to the right of that, I have a live area that I have lit and everything where I can do paint, I can do drawing, I can do all that stuff on traditional media. Does that make sense? So I don't intend to lose anything by not being in class. And then things that are long, like something where I would have to sit, or more complex. Sometimes I go outside and I do things from life and things like that. I'll put on YouTube if they're like I'm doing a video right now that I'll actually link. It's actually from my cartooning class, but there's a lot of watercolor information in it that I want you guys to see. So I will, that's a 2.5 hour video. So obviously I'm going to put that on YouTube. Okay. I don't edit them down anymore because I just go, when you go back, you could watch it in chunks. And when you go back to YouTube, it usually drops you at the same spot you left at. So I don't see any point in breaking it up in half, and then you can scrub through it if you need to. Okay. I'd like to do them longer if I feel like it's a complex subject. I don't want to do a 1/2 hour video on inking, which is what this one is, because you can't do that in a 1/2 hour. Okay. That'll be the Google Drive, and all you have to do is just click the word and it'll take you to it. You don't have to worry about it. And here's the other thing. When you put your work in there, you're going to see it disappear. That means that I'm downloading it and I'm deleting it. Okay, so don't keep reloading it because people think it's something wrong with Google, and it's not. It's just that I'm downloading it because I got to get them all on my computer so I can work on them. Okay, and upload your stuff at like 72 dpi as a JPEG, and the name is your name. Okay. I have this thing here, if you look at it right here, it says why this matters in a digital world. Because A, you need to know your materials, but B, it's a fundamental skill set. If you are doing digital painting, I see this all the time with entertainment design students. They're doing digital painting, all their paintings look mushy and unstructured, and it's because they don't understand painting. They're just emulating things they're seeing from digital painters, but they don't understand brushwork, they don't understand hard and soft edges, they don't understand lost and found edges. They don't understand color. They don't understand any of that stuff. They're basically copying somebody and not understanding the underlying fundamentals of it, okay? So what I always say about this is if you get really good at, traditional painting, drawing, all that stuff, when you jump over to Cintiq or digital painting or whatever, man, you're going to be monster better at it than anybody else in the class. That's just how it works. Does that make sense? And why wouldn't you want to know all your mediums? I go out all the time and I draw and paint from life all the time, okay? And it really helps me with like really understanding color and really understanding form and really understanding how to throw something down fairly quickly because you don't have a lot of time when you're out doing that, okay? This knowing your mediums thing, that's another thing like that where when we get to mixed media, you're gonna start to understand by then like, oh, I can mix this with this, or I can let this dry and then I can do a squeegee a layer of this on it, and then I can start drawing on it, and then you'll start understanding how to put those things together, okay? And I do this a lot where I might start something traditionally, and then I scan it and I take it in the computer and I start playing around with it digitally, and then I might even print it back out, wet mount it down, and start doing acrylic washes over it and just going back and forth, okay? But you have to know your mediums and how they work before you can really do that kind of thing, okay? So the fluidity of media and knowing your mediums are kind of the same thing, okay? Expectations. obviously I expect you got to work hard in my classes, okay? This stuff is complicated and it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of repetition. What I'm going to give you is a lot of technique, okay? I can't do the repetition, but I know a lot about this stuff, okay? So, but you got to do the work. Otherwise, if you don't do the work, it doesn't work, okay? So my expectation is you work hard. This is how we'll approach drawing in the context of this class. That's what I'm talking about with after this project, like our gouache project. Sometimes I'll let them use their own drawing if it's good enough, or they can go and just pull a drawing offline because I'm more concerned with the paint handling. A lot of people, and I'm totally with you on this, they want to use their own drawings. I'm fine with that. But one of the things you're going to find out in here, that especially with watercolor, is that drawing has to be super balanced, super finished, and super ready for paint. And if it's even remotely half-assed, when you paint a half-assed drawing, it just makes it look even worse. And if you've got a great drawing or whatever, cool, you can use your own. That's not a requirement. But I want it finished, and I want to approve it. Does that make sense? And you need to learn that. What's a finished drawing? How much do you need in the drawing? And that's experience, okay? So when I go out and paint on location, I don't really do that much of a drawing. I know how much I need. I just need the big landmarks, and that's about all I need, okay? When you're doing something like a children's book, you're gonna need a little more than that because, you know, it's gotta be pretty fleshed out, okay? Google Drive, I just talked about that. So we'll just use that for folders mostly. And then I'm also going to give you guys, if I give you guys any digital tools or anything like that, I'll link them through the Google Drive, okay? And also when you upload your final projects and all this stuff, don't upload them to Canvas. I like Canvas for a whole bunch of things, but I don't like it for handling files, okay? I like to use the Google Drive. And again, I'll just give you a folder and you just throw it in there. Does all that make sense? We're going to go through this process here on all of them basically, but on the first one, let's go to here. Well, that's fine. Let this guy stop. Hang on. We're going to go through the thumbnailing process, okay, which is basically our ideation process. So these first two things are locked together, okay? And when we first start, all I'm going to ask for are really simple thumbnails. I'm just looking for ideas, and I'm just looking for you guys to start finding your ideas. You can't start an illustration without an idea, okay? Because then it's not going to work, okay? And we got to design it. We do all that in thumbnails, and thumbnailing actually matters a lot because it's your language. So we'll go through that and how to do a readable, simple 5-minute thumbnail, okay? Then we'll go through our value plan. Then we'll go through our color plan, and then we're going to go to paint. Does that all make sense?
Yes.
If anybody has been in another class of mine that we did a watercolor illustration, you need to let me know, and I'll give you a different assignment because I don't want you to have to do the same assignment twice. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, let me, questions on that? Okay, I'm gonna screen cap the room. I'll wait a little while. Let me think. Okay. So, the things we're going to need eventually, we don't need it right away, a small watercolor kit, or if you already have watercolors, whatever, that's fine. If you don't, I would go get an inexpensive set, especially if you've never used it before, because you don't want to invest a lot of money. You're going to go through a few different mediums in here, and you might go, well, I don't like watercolor. I like gouache. I don't really like acrylic. And also, I was telling this to my other class, a lot of students with acrylic, most people hate acrylic, and a lot of people have had to use acrylic in another class and hated it. Talk to those people and go, hey, why don't you sell me your acrylics for 20 bucks or something? Because I mean, they're just sitting there. They're not using them. I know a lot of people hate acrylics, right? I like them, but they don't. Same thing with gouache, anything. There's a lot of students who had to buy something for a class and they're not using it anymore. So you can buy it off of them. But nowadays you can get really good watercolor kits for $20 or less, really. What's going to happen with all your mediums is you start off with basically a student grade set, you know, like that, what I just said with watercolor. And I just like to tell you guys this so you're aware of it. And then you're going to, it's fine, okay? But then if you get into it after a few years or whatever, then you're going to realize that student grade paint sucks. And then just know that when that happens, like I took my small watercolor set and I just soaked all the paint out of it, and then I dropped better tube acrylic into it, or not acrylic, watercolor, and upgraded the paint because I wasn't getting, cheap paint is basically not very pigment rich, therefore it's not very, the color's never very saturated. So you're sitting there fighting to get saturated color. And once you start noticing that, it means your brain is kind of leveled up and you probably need to level up to a better paint. That happens with any medium, oil, gouache, acrylic, it doesn't matter, okay? Like those basics acrylics, they'd be fine for this class, but they're terrible, okay? Winton oils, they're fine for like a basic painting class, but they're terrible. Later on, you'll feel like they're terrible, okay? And I'm just telling you that for later. Don't go get a great kit now. And last time I was in Blick, they had, usually at this time of year, the art stores, and I check Michael's too, because they have a house brand called Artist Loft, I think, and it's actually not bad. And they might have a watercolor set in that. I'm going to post my palette. If you buy a watercolor set and it doesn't have that exact palette, that's fine, okay? But if you're going to buy like tube of anything, watercolor or whatever, I would go by that palette. It's a good, basic, simple palette, okay? And I think it's 8 or 9 colors. You don't want to get a set like, where'd it go? This is actually my favorite set that I have for watercolor, right? Which is Schminke, but, right? I love this set, right? But for you guys, I don't think, and I don't even need all these colors. There's like 24 colors in here. I don't need that. I need maybe 12, okay? But, you know, it's fine. It's good for illustration, okay? This is an expensive set. You don't want this. This is probably, I don't know, 200 bucks, okay? I have a bigger one. Shoot. Let me go grab my other set, you guys, because I want to show you 3 different sets. So give me 2 seconds. I'm pulling everything out of the car. This one is a palette that I got, I think, at Art Supply Warehouse, and I think the palette was like maybe 12, 15 bucks. I don't know. I think it was pretty cheap. I can't remember. And then I just filled this one up with my tube acrylics that I had lying around, okay? And then they just cake up, and it's just like a cake watercolor set, all right? This is kind of a nice size, okay? But that one I just sort of made myself. And then this one is one I just keep in my sketchbook. Really small kit. I like that it has the little fold out palettes. And then it's got a little water well, okay? And then I got about, I don't know, 12 colors in there. I don't know. Yeah, like 12 colors in there. These, but a little kit like this is all you need, okay? The good thing about this is I've had this for about 25 years, and it's a little travel kit, and I love it. The one thing that'd be good about this is I'm big on going out and working from life all the time. It's the best way to build your drawing and painting skills. If you get a little travel kit, then you've got, or a little, you know, a little small kit or whatever. Then after this class is over, you can stick that in your sketch bag and you can go out and do, and get a small, this is a small little watercolor book, right? You know, get a little small watercolor book and just do studies from life. Does that make sense? So it's something you can do after this because you really need to reinforce this or any class after you're doing it, okay? So these, everything in this is just quick little things from life, okay? This is the restaurant I'm sitting in, actually. These are little portraits of people in bars. I don't know what else. This is a little demo I did over at Disney, okay? So showing the library, okay? So I'm just painting anything, okay? This is the lake here, okay? And there's a lot of crappiness in there. A lot of it. What else? Okay, does that make sense? You don't need this by next week, okay? We're not gonna get to watercolor by next week. What I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna link a YouTube tutorial on just basic washes on under announcements. Everything in this class I will do under announcements. So make sure you have announcements notifications set up, okay? So every time that I put something on there, it'll notify you. So everything will just go through that basically. Anything I talk about in class, after class, I'll put up the Zoom meeting, I'll put up the folder for the next class. I will link anything that I talked about or any artists I talked about. I will link videos there. I'm gonna link, like I said, the first one is just, and I just want you guys to watch it and just watch it and get it's just basic washes, wet over dry, wet into wet, so on and so forth, okay? And then I'm trying to build videos right now because like live videos, I do a lot of live videos, okay? They take a lot of time because I don't like them unproduced, so I like to produce them well, you know, they're well produced. But so I'm trying to do things that overlap a little bit. So I just did an inking demo in my fundamentals of cartooning class, but the second half of that video is basically building the color with watercolor and gouache, okay, which is what we're going to do in here. So you can look at that too. So I'll link that too. So you can ignore the inking part if you want. But the second half of that is basically watercolor washes and just building the color that way. Does that make sense? Okay. We're not going to use ink because I want you guys to understand how to work tonally. Because most of us, all of us, are coming from drawing, and now you need to transition into painting. Does that make sense? Okay. I had a hard time with that actually when I first started. So we have to start seeing everything a lot more abstractly and a lot more shape oriented as opposed to sort of outliney or whatever you want to call it. Okay. It's less interpretation really in a weird way because you're putting down flat areas of color and tone. Okay. Now, I'm going to want you to keep a sketchbook in here. I use this lately, which is a clipboard, right? But it opens, okay? And it's got a little storage area in here, right? And you can see I got a couple of pencils down the bottom. These things are really cool. And the reason I like this, and I keep a lot of sketchbooks, but this is my main one right now, is that I can keep 2 different kinds of paper in here, right? So I like doing this tonal stuff, right? This is over at the Patent Museum. And then I like a really nice smooth sketch paper, right? These are just people here at this restaurant actually. But I can keep 2, 3 different kinds of paper in there if I want, okay? But if you're gonna do that, make sure that you get an envelope or something to put your loose sheets in. Do not, at the end of it, because I've had people do this. It actually, they go, oh, I lost a bunch of my loose leaf pages from my sketchbook, and translation, I didn't do it, okay? And I'm just gonna assume you didn't do it because you're an adult and you should keep track of all that stuff. Does that make sense? And then it's just got a little clip, okay? So I like this. It works really good for me, okay? I've tried to get Strathmore to do a half smooth paper, half tone paper book. Then they came at me and said, no, we're gonna do a wet media tone paper. I'm like, okay, you can own this market, but apparently you don't want to. This is a Moleskine. These are more expensive. Okay, this one's probably about 30 bucks. You can see it's getting pretty beat up. The thing I like about these, and I would probably get something not like this as expensive. Some people will get uptight about it. But for this class, what's nice about it is this has a nice paper in it. Like it's a nice thick, it's a pretty nice thick paper, smooth. I like smooth paper. Now that's personal choice, okay? But what I like about this is it takes paint really well, okay? This is acrylic. And I've been taking this out lately. I do this all the time. I just like doing this. Let me see if I can find something here. You know, just doing sketches on location down at the This is at the Port of LA. This is acrylic, okay? This thing can take acrylic really well, okay? Or gouache. Or watercolor. It's going to absorb watercolor a little bit, but mountains up here, right? So it takes acrylic really nice, okay? But these are more expensive. And there's other books you can get. So another one, let me pull this up on here. It looks like this. Oops. I think this is the smaller one. The bigger one is about, I don't know, a little longer than letter size, I would guess. There's spiral bound, which is great. And this has, I think, 100 sheets in it. And they have these at Barnes & Noble for about $8, okay? And it's a nice sketchbook. I've got some that I've been carrying around for a long time, and there's still a lot of spiral sketchbooks. The pages start coming out of them and stuff, and it hasn't done any of that. It also has a smooth, nice paper in it. And that paper, even though you wouldn't think so, it takes paint pretty well. It takes acrylic and stuff like that pretty well, which you wouldn't think it would, but it does. And it's an inexpensive sketchbook. I think this is a really good sketchbook, okay? And again, the paper's nice and smooth, and just get the bigger one. This is the medium. And like I said, if you go to Barnes & Noble, they always have these, all right? It's called a Piccadilly. If you go to the last, and they're just black, or they have them sometimes with prints on them like this. Like that, but they're all the same sketchbook, okay? I just like the black ones. Get the bigger one, don't get the little tiny, don't get the small one, okay? You don't want any sketchbook for this class under letter size, okay? Does that make sense? I mean, sketchbooks are up to you. Okay, but the one thing I would say, if you're gonna get a hardbound sketchbook, let me flip out of here. If you're gonna get a hardbound sketchbook, make sure that you get one that lays flat, okay? Don't get one that has a gutter in the center of it, because it actually makes the sketchbook almost useless, okay? And most of them, a lot of manufacturers now, they make, ever since the Moleskine, they do this. So see how that goes totally flat? Okay, there's no gutter, okay? Totally flat. I can go to any page on here and it'll lay flat, okay? You want that, okay? Do not, because there's these really pretty sketchbooks that look like hardbound books, and they're nice and thick, and then when you open them up, man, it's got this big gutter, so like literally half the page is useless. And then when you're using that on location, it's useless. One of the things I like about the spiral bound book is that you can, like if you're at the zoo, you usually stand in front of a fence and you can just flip that over and just set it on the fence and draw with it. Even with the Moleskine, it's a little more cumbersome to set this on the fence. It's not terrible, but you know, you can't just fold it around all the way around like you can a spiral book. And the reason I like those Piccadillys is that they don't come apart. Like I used to never use spirals because they'd always come apart. And in my experience with the Piccadillys, they don't. And I beat the hell out of these things. If you look at this one's getting all chewed up, right? This one, though, I've been carrying around since I think 2015, and I just started really sketching in it more or less lately. Okay, doing paintings in it and stuff. Does all that make sense? Questions?
For the Moleskine, the one that you just showed, is that just the regular sketchbook and it takes the watercolor and the acrylic really well, or is that just like a different type of Moleskine?
It's a regular large Moleskine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing with watercolor, or even acrylic, when I first start laying washes, I don't know if I have any washes in here, hang on. When you first start laying washes down, this is all washes, okay, because I haven't painted on this yet. So this is what I start with. I start with a orange ground, okay, and I haven't really started painting on this yet. But you can see it's pretty spotty everywhere, which doesn't matter. But what's happening there is when, especially with watercolor. So if you start painting with watercolor in this on this paper, it usually beads up for a while, and then it tends to when you buy watercolor paper is sized, which means that it has a coating on the surface of the paper, which nowadays I think is gelatin, I think. And it used to be like rabbit skin glue or something, I don't remember. But anyway, that controls the absorbency of the surface of the paper, okay?
Okay.
That's why watercolor washes lay down beautifully on watercolor paper, because it's designed to regulate the absorption rate. Okay, so when you
Mhm.
normally put watercolor or something like that on this kind of paper, especially those Piccadillys, it just sucks the watercolor into the paper almost immediately. Okay,
Okay.
what I always do with that is I go, instead of going, oh, trying to make it work like watercolor paper, I just go, oh, that's what it does. And then I just work with what it does, okay? With acrylic, the first washes are like that. It kind of sucks it into the paper like that. But then once I put that surface down, now the acrylic's adhering to acrylic, and now I've got a good ground to work on, and it starts behaving more like acrylic. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
And also, if you want to, for this, you know, you can get a really inexpensive, like I said, a little watercolor thing. If you want to just work on watercolor paper and just get a little inexpensive watercolor, because I keep this sketchbook in my bag, this one, and this one, all in my
Okay.
bag at the same time, okay? For the first couple weeks in here, all we're gonna need is roll trace, okay? Which is a really translucent, you can see my hand through it, right? Very translucent. I love this paper, right? Sometimes it's called sketch paper. Sometimes it's called roll trace. This size is fine for this class, which is about, I think it's 12 inches. It's a foot. You can get this if you go to Blick. You can get it usually at any art store, but if you go to Blick, when you walk into Blick, the last aisle on the left, where they have all the flat files, the other side of the aisle is where you'll find this, okay? They also have it in like a yellow. For this class, I would keep it to the white. I like the yellow for other things, but the white works nice for this class, okay? This paper, I love drawing on this paper. The other thing that's nice about this is that you get this roll of it. It lasts forever, so you can use it for other classes and stuff. And I just love this paper. I love drawing on it. And it's, I can build things really quickly in layers, kind of like how you do in Photoshop with this very quickly. But I don't mind working digitally, but I prefer a nice paper and a really good pencil, okay? There's just something about it. And then I might scan it in and start playing with it digitally, okay?
Will we be getting a materials list for this class?
Yeah, I'll put it up. I don't have a gray one. God, I can't believe that. Hang on. You'll need a roll of drafting tape at some point. This is too thin. Get an inch roll. Drafting tape, not masking tape, not art tape, drafting tape. Because we're always gonna have a clean border on everything we do and have a nice clean presentation, okay?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't mean to ask a stupid question, but
There's
I
no
tried to
stupid
look on this on the syllabus and everything, but do we have like a specific class time in a day, or
9
is
to
it going to
3:30.
be just this?
9 to 3:30.
Okay, for today?
No,
For
today we
Friday?
won't go that long.
Oh, okay.
And we normally don't go to 3:30, especially online. When we're in class, we do. And sometimes we do, but usually we go till, because there's a lot of discussion, a lot of overlays, a lot of just a lot of, you know, showing you techniques, all that kind of stuff. So it does eat up quite a bit of the day, but we don't usually go all the way to 3:30 online. In class, we usually do, okay? Because we got a lot of setup in class, we got a lot of breakdown in class. And then the other thing is normally what happens in class is I show you guys, I demo, and then everybody starts working, and then I'm just going around the class and helping everybody and stuff like that, which obviously I can't do in here. So what we do is, that's why we have the folder for the next class. I'll show you everything, answer all kinds of questions, do on-the-spot demos if I need to do that to answer a question. And then the next class, you're gonna do that, and you can communicate with me during the week. And if you need to have a private Zoom with me during the week, that's fine too. And then the next week, you'll put all that stuff in the folder, and then I can start looking at it, and we can go over it, and we'll go over new techniques and things like that. It works pretty smooth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
And there's no stupid questions in here.
Okay.
And the example I always use in every one of my classes is everybody has some blind spot in their brain when they're learning things, okay? My head's starting to shine. Everybody has a blind spot in their brain, right? mine was in a perspective or in a class, and we were sitting, it was at Art Center, and we're sitting in a class, and the guy goes, the teacher or whatever goes, okay, establish your horizon line. And I go, I can't see the horizon line. We're in a classroom. You know what I mean? Because in my brain, I was like, well, how can I establish the horizon line if I can't see it? Okay. And it just didn't make sense to me. Okay. And then I kept going like, well, I don't get how I do that. And he never explained it to me and just said, it's the eye level, dude. Just, you want a high point or you want a low point, you know? And I had to figure it out myself basically, right? It's not, there's no stupid, to me, the reason I didn't ask a whole lot about it is because I felt like it was a stupid question. It's not a stupid question. It's a totally valid question, okay? Anything you don't understand is a valid question. And the only reason I'm here is to teach you guys, okay? I just had somebody in the class and they go, oh, should I already know this? Should I already know this? Like, I'm here to teach you guys. I don't expect you guys to know anything, okay? And I expect some of this stuff to get a little bit complicated and you know, or it's just something where I have to figure out the approach that works for you to understand it. Okay, because sometimes it's just that. Okay, and most of the time it's just that. Just like with when I finally figured out a horizon line, and I don't think you should call it a horizon line, by the way. I think they should call it an eye level, because what you're establishing is your eye level. Okay, and at least in language for me that makes more sense. Maybe it doesn't for everybody else. I don't know. But there's always going to be blind spots in everybody's brain where they're like, I just don't get this. Okay, same thing when I was doing primitives and basic drawing cubes and all that stuff, and then I did that, and then the teacher goes. And I'm just sitting there the whole time going, why am I doing this? Like, why? I don't know why I'm doing this. And that's the teacher's fault because they weren't combining this with the real world. Okay. And I'm very aware of that. All right. Then the teacher went, okay, we're done with that. Let's do this. And I went, I don't know why I did this. Like, I don't know why I did this. Like, I did an okay job on it, but I don't know why I did it. Like, what is this for? Okay. So I just thought it was an exercise in looking at something and drawing. It's not. It's actually the foundation of seeing shapes. Okay. Get a good art pencil. My favorite is this one, which is a Blackwing 602. There it is. That's my favorite, okay? What's cool about this too is the eraser comes out, and you can pop they make a kneaded eraser to go in here, or if you wear it out beforehand, you can switch them out. I save them in case I wear one out. I hardly ever wear them out because I don't erase that much. Really nice pencil, okay? I would get maybe, I like to use an orange or a red when I'm doing a drawing for watercolor. When I'm doing on location watercolors and things like that, I like to use red. It sort of disappears under the wash. Under the wash is nice. This one's an orange color erase. The thing I like about color erases is they don't really go that dark unless you really bear down on them. So this will stay pretty light and loose, which is nice, okay? So get a good art pencil. It doesn't have to be a Blackwing. It could be a Faber-Castell. It could be a Mitsubishi. It could be a Tombow. It could be a Staedtler. Any of those, all those are fine, right? Just get one. The reason I don't mind pushing a good pencil is because that's actually not expensive, and it makes a huge difference. If you're using those crappy yellow pencils, they got a bunch of garbage in them, and they're scratchy and crappy. Don't start getting sensitive to the tools you're using. Okay, does that all make sense?
So is the Blackwing pencil, is it graphite?
Yeah, it's graphite. It's
Okay,
real
thank you.
buttery. It's real buttery and real creamy. It's a nice pencil. I love that. Okay. And I like a nice smooth paper. You know, you might like a rough paper. The only problem with rough paper is you can't do as many techniques on it. Like when I'm going to kill this guy over here. There's a lot of things I can do with a smooth paper technique-wise that I just can't do with a rough paper, and I'll show you that stuff, okay? Like we'll probably do a rub-out value study maybe, which I like to do. We can do that we'll probably do it on this trace. I think I've done it on this trace before. Because I'm aware of keeping costs down. I'm aware that buying paint is expensive. I'm hoping that a lot of you guys have paint from other classes and things like that. It's why I'm going to give you my palette, the colors I like, but that doesn't mean you have to go out and get those. If you already have a watercolor set or acrylic set or a gouache set, don't worry about changing any of the colors, okay? And I'm also gonna walk you through basic, can't get rid of that sun, oh, there it goes. I'm gonna walk you through basic color mixing, okay? So if you haven't had color theory or something, don't worry about that. Although you should take color theory later, all right? Get rid of this glare. Oh, well, there you go. With your pencil for watercolor, okay, so let me see if I have one here. I don't have one in here because I don't usually use them on location. Hang on. Let me see if I have one. Okay, the technique I'm going to show you first when we start with watercolor, it's a very classic technique, okay? I like to use, and I'll put this on the list, I like to use a terracotta Derwent drawing pencil, okay? It's a brownish pencil. Because I don't really like graphite because it's gray and it's not very appealing. And I don't want to, you know, if we're doing inking, that'd be different. And even with inking, half the time I use a brown ink because the black can just get really harsh. But especially for this kind of thing. For children's books, I feel like they should feel a little softer. But I'm going to show you after we get our initial watercolor thing down, how you can punch things with a little bit of Croco pen and some brown ink if you want to do that, or going back in and punching with your pencil a little bit just to separate a little bit. It's a nice technique, okay? It's a nice broad technique. And it's just the way I do children's stuff, okay? Not unique to me, I didn't invent it. And then, you know, we'll go into acrylic and all that stuff. The reason I really want to push acrylic on you guys is that I hated acrylics when I first learned them. I couldn't make friends with acrylics forever. I didn't really learn, and it's weird because I had really good teachers and everything around it. I didn't really learn how you handle them until I went over to Imagineering and I found Nina Ray Vaughn's office, and I saw she always worked in acrylic, and she had her setup in there. She wasn't there, and I looked at it and went, "Oh, that's how you do it." And I didn't really learn it until then, really. And then ever since then, I've really liked it. And the thing, and you don't have to like it or anything, but it's a really bulletproof medium. And one of the things that I liked about it is I was doing a project at Art Center, and there's no tolerance for not finishing your projects at Art Center. They'll just tear you to pieces for it. And I was working on this acrylic painting or whatever, or illustration at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I reached to grab something and I knocked my coffee onto it, okay, all over it. And I was like, oh my God, there's no way I could get this done in another 4 hours or whatever. There's just no way. And then, so I wiped it off and it didn't do anything to it because the acrylic, it was already dry, and acrylic's plastic. And I don't know why, I always liked how bulletproof it was, because if that would have been gouache, it would have been wrecked, because gouache will reactivate. Does that make sense? And like watercolor, it won't reactivate the watercolor, but it is going to start absorbing the coffee into that type of paper, whereas the acrylic is plastic, so it basically repelled the coffee and I just wiped it off, right? And I like doing sketchbook paintings like I was just showing you. When I'm doing those, it's nice because I have a oil box too, but it's nice to do these sketchbook paintings in acrylic because when I go back to my car, they're dry. I don't have to worry about, like when I'm doing oils, I have to really put them somewhere so they don't get screwed up until they're dry and all that. So sometimes it's kind of nice to have something that's that durable, okay? Wash is really durable too, but if you get it wet again, it reactivates, okay? Which is a really good thing because you can go in and soften things later and all that. Does that make sense? I know I'm rambling, but I like all this stuff. Okay, let me capture this room. Oh wait, hang on. Oh no, wait, that's fine. Okay, the way I do attendance is I usually come in on the minute when this class any class starts. And I screen cap the room. That's everybody who's on time. And then I screen cap it somewhere later on in the meeting. And then that's all the people who are late. Does that make sense? I don't like, hey, Susie. I don't like, when this COVID thing first started, they were like, hey, be a little easier on that. And that's fine. I don't believe in that anymore. Your classroom's 5 feet from your bed. There's just no reason to be late, okay? I understand that once in a while there's a technical problem or something like that. I get that. Susie, did you just get here?
Hey, I was driving up I wasn't driving. I was the passenger coming up the mountain. So we're in Running Springs now, but we're headed to Big Bear in a little bit.
Oh, you going
to
to
I know Springs? I could have come to your class just down the road, huh?
Well, you could have sat here. I'm sitting at the restaurant.
I know. Dang it.
My Wi-Fi's down. Such a pain in the ass. But on the first day, it's not so bad because I just go through the syllabus and materials and all that.
Yeah. No, I've been in and out.
I know that would have been cool if you would have came here. That would have been cool.
I know.
It's really pretty too. The park behind here is really pretty right now. Okay, what else? Oh, with your pencil for watercolor, I usually use a HB for watercolor, but we're also going to use this brown pencil. So, or you don't have to use a brown pencil. You could use a regular pencil. That's fine. That's going to be up to you, and you can make that decision. But if you do use a regular graphite pencil, I'd use an HB, at the most a 2B. If you start getting into really soft graphite pencils, when you put water on them, they start smearing all over the place, and then you got this gray in there, and it's a mess. Okay. We're going to stretch our paper, so it's going to sort of, oh, another thing you should get, find a board. Okay, so the biggest we'll probably go in this class is 11 by 17, right? So find a board, like an old piece of plywood or whatever you got. Just make sure it's not covered with grease or anything. That's a little bigger than that, okay? Like maybe 2 inches over that, okay? I used to go, and I still do, I have probably 5 of those plywood boards that are like all geared to different size papers. And whenever I do something watercolor, whatever, that's what I stretch my paper on, right? So this is a piece of gator board, which you could use, but it's sort of like you're gonna do something sort of like that. Can you see that? That's watercolor paper, okay? There it is, okay? This I just use for sketching, okay? That's why it's just taped. I like to staple down when I stretch it, but you could use butcher tape. I'll get into that later. If you don't want to if you find out if you have a staple gun, if anybody has a staple gun in your house, a lot of people do for other stuff. If you do, I would use that. Normally, again, in class, I let you guys use mine, but we're not in class. You can also use butcher tape. Okay, butcher tape's that stuff that you wet it down and then you put it down. The reason I don't like butcher tape is that it's inconsistent. Sometimes it comes up, which drives me crazy. The reason you stretch your paper is that what it's going to do is once it dries out, it goes tight as a drum. And then when you cut your watercolor paper out of that, it looks like a piece of illustration board. It's perfectly flat. It's not buckled. It just looks really nice. Okay, you do not want to work loose. You're also going to have a 1-inch border on everything you do in here. So get that roll of 1-inch drafting tape, okay? And so you have to always remember, if I go this first project we're going to do is going to be 11 by 17, that you need I would get a 1 sheet of watercolor paper and probably just rip it in half. So you're bigger than 11 by 17 because you're going to need that inch border. And I like to go a little bigger than that because I like to test my colors on the edges of the paper. And then once I cut it off, all that gets cut off and it's gone. Does that make sense? Camille? Thumbs up? I like making people do that. All right. Let's see what else. You might want, and this is just, I like to keep a little spritz bottle because when I'm doing watercolor, right? To activate my paint, I just like to come in here and spritz it. Okay, and it activates all my paint. Does that make sense? You don't want to go into dry paint. Obviously optional, right? You can get those at beauty supply stores, but they have them at Blick too. Pins, if you want to do pins for thumbnails, I like the old flare pins because they make a big fat mark. And when you're doing thumbnails, you do not want to get detailing. Okay. And I will put a materials list up. Okay. And I'm just going to list, I'm not going to list everything for this class right now because that's just going to seem overwhelming. I'm just going to go for the next couple weeks. You need a pencil, roll trace. And I like, if you have tracing paper and it's not roll trace, just use that, okay? I like this because I think it works better. But, man, that glare is gnarly. There it is. I think it works better. But if you already have trace, don't buy more trace, okay? You probably have it for another class, that's fine. Don't buy anything again if you already have it from another class, okay? Because we'll just make it work. I'm going to list my palette, like I said. Again, I'm not telling you to go out and buy those. But like, let's say you were going to go buy tube watercolor instead of a cake set. Then you might want to buy those colors, okay? And it's also a smaller palette. You don't want a billion colors. Somebody just showed me in another class yesterday. They have a set of watercolors. It's like a palette, and it's like 40 colors. That's not a good idea, okay? It's too many colors. It's way easier to harmonize your colors if you don't have so many colors. And you're also going to really understand color theory and all that kind of stuff a lot better if you're working with a smaller palette, okay? I used to make I made these horrible paintings when I was at Art Center when I first got there. And I found my acrylic bag a few years ago, or it was years ago. I found my acrylic bag from that time, and I probably had 55 tubes of color in there. And it's like, no wonder my paintings look like crap. There was too many colors going on, okay? There was no color harmony going on. I was going, oh, I'm going to try and do that green. I'd go grab some tube of green. You know, it was terrible. But limited palette, okay? Now, normally, if we were doing a straight painting class, then I would have you guys do a limited, maybe a Zorn palette thing or a very limited palette thing. We're not going to do all that. I think we'll be fine. But I'm going to give you a really simple way of color mixing that I think is valuable, that I had to figure out myself. Okay, questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you think you can add the link to that one clipboard thing where it opens and there's storage in there?
Yeah, they have those at Staples.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you.
And they probably have it at any office store. And then there's one I like. It's a lot more elaborate though. But you can get these contractor ones at Home Depot for about $14. And they're really heavy duty and like they hold a lot of stuff and they're actually kind of cool. Like you could put your whole sketch kit in there. I have one in my office. I should have got it. And those are cool too. They're not as, this one fits in my sketch bag, which is what I like, but they have them at Staples. But I'll find them online, I'll put it in there. I think they're $10 maybe. Other questions?
Mike?
Yeah.
I have a leftover illustration board from other class. Can I use it, this one? The illustration board?
That's a sketchbook?
Yeah. But
And there's nothing in it?
Nothing.
Oh yeah, you can use that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to make you guys buy anything if you don't have to buy it. If you got a sketchbook, use it. As long as it's not, this big. So I've gotten that at the end of the term, right? You have to hand in your sketchbook and somebody hands me this little sketchbook this big and it's like this thin. It's like, are you kidding me? Don't do that, right? Another thing I have is a big clipboard. I have an 18 by something clipboard, and I put 11 by 17 paper on that for, actually I do it a lot for this class. You can get those on Amazon if you like that. And I like Hammermill. I think it has a really stupid name. I think it's called digital copy paper. And you can buy it by the ream. I used to be able to get it at Staples. Lately, I haven't been able to find it, but you can get it online. And the picture on the cover is a parrot. It used to be a green apple. Now it's a parrot. Because apparently they want to make it as confusing as possible to find this paper. But it's really nice paper. It's got a little bit of weight to it. And it's really smooth. It's a really nice paper. With a Blackwing pencil, man, it's awesome. Camille knows, right? You gonna back me up here, Camille? You gotta unmute.
Yes, it's very good paper.
Okay, good. See, Camille agrees with me. 4 out of 5 Camille's agree. Okay, other questions? No questions? Okay,
I've got a, oop,
go ahead.
sorry, never mind.
No, go ahead.
I've got a question. Let's see. So on Canvas, you never unlocked the assignments. I don't know if you did that intentionally, but at
I
some
don't have anything under assignments right now.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, thank you.
What I'll do is, okay, so in this class, we do 2 things. We do, pretty much all my classes, we do exercises or projects, okay? So I might go, hey, I want thumbnails for next week. That's gonna be an exercise, okay? And I throw 10 points at it. You get it done, it's 10 points, it's simple, right? And then a project is 100 points. And I'm gonna grade that a lot more on, you know, just good execution, your design to a certain extent. I also know you guys are in a learning process, so I want you guys to understand something. I'm not expecting everybody to go become some monster traditional, you know, person overnight. Some people do. And I know this takes time. And I also know you're in a learning process. And I want to make sure that you guys know that I know that, okay? So this isn't, I know you're in a learning process, okay? So when you bring things in, you know, it takes a while to get a hang of this stuff, okay? And it tends to look when you're, I had a teacher, he's still over there over at Art Center, and he would, and anybody who's been in my class, I probably told this story, but he did these demos when my jaw was on the floor. I could not believe what this guy could do just out of his head. I was just like, this is insane. And I was just kind of, I mean, I was totally intimidated by it, you know? And he was a super cool guy. He wasn't and I asked him about it one time, and I go, how the, you know, because I just thought he was some freak of nature, okay? Now I can do all that stuff, but at the time I just thought, I go, that's just insane how good he is. Like that's not possible. Like that's just some weird thing he can do. And then anyway, I was asking him about it one time, and I was just joking around. I go, hey, Gary, when am I gonna get that good? And he goes, I've been doing this for 40 years, man. I should be pretty good at it, don't you think? And I went, mileage. And that's when mileage clicked in my head, and repetition, okay? And mechanics. Like what Gary was showing me all the time or the whole class in those demos was hardcore mechanics, okay? And we're gonna do a lot of hardcore mechanics in here because there's no point in a painting or whatever we wanna call this, paint handling, technique, paint techniques, all that kind of stuff. There's no point in it in a class if I'm not showing you a lot of technique and a lot of handling, okay? This is not a hippy-dippy doo-dah painting class, okay? You're gonna come out of here and understand how to handle these materials, okay? And, you know, be able to create your own stuff with it. But you have to do the repetition, you know. Other questions?
I have a question. So in our sketchbooks, will we be using watercolors and acrylics and gouache, or will we just be drawing in them?
You can do whatever you want in there.
Okay.
So what I would suggest you do, now again, I know when you're a student, you're broke, usually, I was. So I know that I'm going, hey, go get a watercolor sketchbook, go get this, go get that. Get what you can, okay? I expect you to get a sketchbook. And what I always have done, like I said, like I've had, you know, I'll do, like in those Piccadillys, they'll just suck the watercolor right into the paper, so you can't really manipulate it a whole lot. But I just go, okay, that's what it does, so that's how I work in this sketchbook. But what it's helping you do, every time you pick up a pencil and you get in a sketchbook or whatever, or every time you pick up, you know, your watercolor kit and you just sit there and you do some, just like I was showing you those ones of the people in the bar, right? I'm learning something. I'm getting better. Like it's every time you pick up a pencil or a pen or anything, and you do something, you make something, you're learning something, okay? Because you're learning how to solve a problem, okay? Like those little sketchbook paintings I was showing you earlier. Those are you got to work out problems every time. It's different every time, you know. When I was doing those ones of the ships or the fishing boats, by the time I got back to the water, knocked in the boats and everything, blocked everything in, blocked the water in a certain way. Now a wind had kicked up and kicked the water all up. So now the water all changed. And so when I went in to change or to kind of finish out the water, I also had to sort of paint it differently now where it became rougher and all that stuff I have to do in the moment. And I'm trying to do this before all the light changes and all that kind of stuff. But I'm learning, you know, that's a situation that's, you know, it's different every single time. You know what I mean? So, or the light's different every single time, or the light's different from this hour to this hour. And it just, man, it compresses. If you'll get in that sketchbook and draw and paint or whatever, it just compresses your learning curve. Okay. You know, it might be a 5-year learning curve for you to get here from here to here. But if you're in that sketchbook every single day, I draw every single day in a sketchbook. Okay. I draw people every single day. I draw stuff or paint stuff every single day. Okay. It compresses your learning curve that might be a 5-year learning curve to a year. Okay. And I always say, like, if you want the magic formula, man, it's getting in a sketchbook and working observationally. Okay. And then also starting to pull that into your imaginary, you know, stuff you're making up. Okay. Because then you're going to start understanding how to make stuff up. Then you're going to understand, if you work from color with paint, when you go work from photography, you're going to understand that shadow is not that black. That shadow is not that dark. That shadow has some blue in it. That tree has a little more warmth in the brown in there. You're going to know that stuff intuitively because you work from life. And I'd argue if you haven't worked from life, you don't know how to work from photography because you don't know how to interpret, because photography lies all over the place. Okay. And I'm not, and we accept it as an absolute, and it's not an absolute. Like if you look at photography, it masses all the shadows into almost blacks, which shadows aren't black. It pushes colors into weird areas. Sometimes it loses a lot of color. Almost every time I take a picture of an artwork or something, I've got to juice the color a little bit to get the color back into it. It just does a lot of little things. It don't matter unless you're an illustrator and you're looking at it, okay? So when I work from photography or whatever, I can use pretty lousy photography because I know what the color and everything's going to do because I work from life all the time. Does that make sense? So I'm always going to beat you over the head and working from life, okay? And even in here, even though my Saturday class is more about that, in here I'll show you things here and there about that, okay? Because I just want to make sure that, you know, my goal is always to get you guys addicted to a sketchbook, okay? And a lot of students do. Camille does it, right? Right, Camille? You're supposed to unmute and say, yes, I do.
Yes.
I do. Close enough. But Camille, I had her in my Saturday class, and man, she did a huge, giant learning curve was like that, okay? And I'm assuming it's because she was working her butt off in her sketchbook, probably. I'm assuming everybody that I get in those classes that does that jumps through the roof, and I get a lot of them. It's usually because they're working really hard, okay? I always say, again, I'll show you a ton of technique and all that stuff, but you got to do the repetition. I cannot do that, okay? And it takes a lot of repetition, okay? Yeah? And to your, the other part of your question about like what is expected in there, you can work on, like, we're going to start with a children's book thing, okay? So you could start working out your image in there. You could start throwing a little bit of color on it and just see how it looks. Or you could do your value studies in there. I would for sure do my value studies in there. Another thing that I keep, you can either keep it on your palette, but I like to keep, where is it? And this is nice for studies or on location stuff, okay? I keep one of these, which is a water brush, right? You can get these anywhere, literally. Right? Handle's full of water, it's a water brush. And then I keep sorry, it's stuck in my bag. I keep this old pill box from Rite Aid or someplace. And I keep black watercolor in it, right? So if I have this, either on location, I can just do black and white studies of people. And I always call that reducing my line mileage, because instead of having to fill everything in and figuring out line and stuff, I can just throw down the, actually I have some in here, hang on. These are really old. like this mariachi guy, hard to see, is just a quick pencil drawing, and then the rest of it's just black watercolor using just what I just said. Does that make sense? So I can just really quickly fill in all that tone. You see it better there? He was sitting there watching a card game, right? Everybody ever go to Mariachi Plaza? If we weren't locked down like this, we go to Mariachi Plaza. And it's more of the mariachis just hanging out, right? But this is a really nice little thing because it's so small. And I just get a tube of black watercolor, which is cheap, or if you already have one. And I just fill this up and it'll just cake up, okay? And I can just get a little bit of wet because I don't have to be super accurate with that. So it works great. And the thing I always say about this is you can carry a bunch of markers around, or you can carry black watercolor and one of these, and I can get every shade of gray imaginable, which I can't do with marker. Does that make sense? And let me check one more thing. I'm going to see if I have anything relevant here real quick. Which I should. Hang on. I'm trying to find sketchbook stuff or finished illustration stuff here. Hang on. So you can work out this kind of stuff in your sketchbook. Let me switch this. Where, you know, you're starting to stylize this kind of thing and work it out. Does that make sense? Like, I love to work from life. But so this, I think this is from a workshop I did where it was designing from life. So we went to Old Town Orange. And I picked the most boring building there and just kind of stylized it, made it look more interesting, right? If I have a place I can go to, and this is just me, if I have a place I can go to and sit there and have a beer or something and look at the stuff and get a bunch of ideas and start sketching out my roughs and start getting, I just love doing it from life. It's just, you know, so Old Town Orange looks very Main Street Disneyland, okay? Really Main Street Disneyland. So it's very easy to go over there and sort of jump off. This building really just looked like a box, but I was taking bits and pieces from things around it, like taking this window from over here and this light post from over there and, you know, moving everything around and then stylizing and simplifying and squishing and doing whatever I was doing, okay? So to the point of what we're just talking about, what you're doing in your sketchbook, you can do stuff like that, right? All you're working out of stuff, okay? And the other thing is I don't expect this sketchbook to be some perfect thing at the end, okay? There's gonna be bad pages in it, there's gonna be crappy drawings in it. Now, that doesn't mean don't make an effort in it, but I'm not expecting it to be so every page is perfect. I'm not expecting that at all. I'm expecting to be messy and you're working things out and you're trying different styles and you're making crappy drawings and you're making great drawings and so on and so forth. Does that make sense? I'm trying to find some finished stuff.
Mike? What medium did you use for your sketching on the Old Town? Is it watercolor?
Pencil. This one here?
Yes.
It's just pencil.
Sketching.
Yeah, it's just pencil.
Pencil. Okay.
Yeah, it might have been that brown pencil I was just talking about because it's brownish. Or I might have changed it in Photoshop. I don't know. I think it was, I don't know. It was pencil. I know that.
Okay.
I think it was graphite pencil. I think it was a Blackwing, actually. That's usually what I'm using. I'm just trying to find some finished watercolory stuff.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What day did you say we were gonna have class again? Fridays?
It's always Fridays.
Fridays. Okay, thank you.
9 to 3:30 is when it's scheduled. The times don't change because we're locked down. At least not for me. There's another one from, this is an
Okay,
aerial
thank you.
view. So this is an aerial view of the same scene. Hang on. Same building, different day. And now I put the vanishing point up higher, right? So you don't have to be restricted to what your view is. That's just a box. Okay? And then I made up the fountain, I think. Or I moved the fountain. So you don't have to be restricted to what you are. You just go off and do your thing, right? I'm trying to find watercolor. I know I have some.
So, Mike, was that perspective from your imagination?
It's looking at the building and changing the perspective from my imagination, yeah. So I was looking at something in front of myself because I was just doing the same demo, you know, because I like that spot. And I just went, this time I'll just do a bird's eye view of it. Okay. Now, the reason I can do that is because I go, well, the building's just a big box. So if I establish that the vanishing point's up here, my eye level is up here, then I think I'm gonna have to plug this in. Hang on a sec, you guys.
Are we gonna be working together as a class on it, or are we gonna be in groups, or is it just by ourselves?
Working on it, you know, I'll be critiquing it and all that stuff in class. Okay? And no, we're not gonna work in groups.
Okay, thank you.
The group thing, and here I don't really need it anyway, but the group thing that I always have a problem with is that 2 people end up doing the work and the other 3 just cruise. It happens like every time I hear it, every time somebody does a group project, and it makes me insane.
Yeah.
Then you go, and then I go, well, why don't you tell those 3 people they're all failing? Well,
Yeah.
well, nothing, man. And like either contribute or split.
I get that.
It's not fair to others. I don't like that, man. And if somebody did that in my class, that's why I don't do the group thing. Somebody did that in my class, man, I'd fail you. Because you're failing on a whole bunch of fronts. I always say when you walk into college, I don't care what college it is, and you're taking your first steps into professionalism, and you need to start being professional, okay? And you need to start hitting your deadlines. If you're working with a team, you need to accomplish what you say you're going to accomplish, so on and so forth. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yeah.
Like, don't be a flake. There's nothing worse than that. So this is the same basic technique here.
I have a question.
Yeah.
For the first assignment, are we able to pick the story, or do you pick the story?
Yeah, you can. I don't care. Okay, here's the thing. You're going to get a 2-page spread. I'm going to put the here's how I look at it. I go, I'm going to give you the layout. Okay, I'll put that on Canvas or whatever, and it's going to be a 2-page spread. So it's 2 pages. You got to think about where the gutter is, so you can design around the gutter. I'll talk about this more next week, and then we're going to go through the thumbnailing and roughing and all that sort of process, right? Because you need to go through it in the right steps. Here's what always happens. And then you can just go, it's a scene out of a book, or you could think of it as the cover. I don't care. But I always give myself some sort of backstory on it. And I just go, oh, this character is, it doesn't have to be a big thing, but I'll just go, oh, this character is, this is who they are. Here's what the scenario is, and blah, blah, blah. And I'll give you some examples. And I'll do a lot of, because next week I'll be back in my studio, and I'll be able to sit there and go through it with you guys. So that's all up to you. And then after this, again, I'll let you guys use drawings. It's not really the story or whatever is not going to be as important. It's really going to become about paint handling. But this first one, I like you guys to learn how to take a drawing and then take it all the way to finish, ready for paint. Because for the rest of this class, it's going to become really important, okay? Again, you try to paint a lousy drawing, it's polishing a turd. It just doesn't work, okay? It's lipstick on a pig, whatever you want to call it, okay? Did that answer that?
Yeah.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Could you possibly give us all the brand names of the materials that you were talking about today?
Yeah. Yeah, when I put the list up, I'm going to put up, like I said, in batches. Okay, so I'm going to talk about, with this list, I'll put up just what we're going to need. And I'm also just want you guys to know, like next week, you will not need watercolor. I would start getting your materials together. Next week, you're really going to need is your roll trace, pencil, a kneaded eraser. Make sure you get a kneaded eraser. Not a crappy pink pearl eraser, not a plastic eraser, a kneaded eraser, okay? They don't abrade the surface as much. You can shape them and you can lift things out, okay? Which you can't do with other erasers. Or, yeah, other erasers. Okay, let's see if this one works.
I also have a question.
Yeah.
So I'm in your illustration class. Is this the same project?
Yes, basically, so you, where are you? Okay, good. So I want you then to pick something a little bit different. Unless you want to, I don't want you to repeat the exact same thing. So you can pick like a little bit of a different subject matter, because you haven't done watercolor really before, right?
No, I've done it before, but
okay,
I'm not, I specialize in gouache.
Okay, good. Then I want you by next week to give me something that you want to do.
Okay.
Okay. And it can involve water. I'd still want you to do watercolor in both.
Yeah.
But you can give me a totally different subject matter from the other class.
Okay.
Okay. So, and what I would do there, if you have some experience in watercolor, I would look at that and go, can I do this? I want to do something like this, and maybe it could be a portfolio piece.
Okay.
I'm really aware of that. I know that there's certain things because I don't like a lot of overlap in classes, but in this particular project, there just has to be, okay? But I always do that in my classes. If you had another class and you've done that project, then it's like, okay, let's do a different one. Because I don't think it's bad to do repetition in watercolor. I'm fine with that. But I don't want you to have to do the same project in both classes. So just give me a different subject matter, okay? Doesn't even have to be children's book related. You could go, hey, I want to think of it as something for the New Yorker or something. I don't care, okay? But give me that proposal by next week, okay?
Okay.
And if you want to go back and forth with me on email and go, hey, I'm thinking this, and go through it and discuss it, that's totally cool. Okay?
Cool. Thank you.
Again, I don't want you guys doing the same project in a bunch of different classes, or in the same classes. You see this? Watercolor, pencil, and a little ink. That's what we're going to be doing. Does that make sense? And the other thing I want you guys to understand is there's overlap in painting in different materials, okay? So when you're understanding the idea of fat over lean painting, that applies to oil, that applies to acrylic, that doesn't apply so much to watercolor. It applies to any opaque media, casein, anything you want to use. That when you're learning gouache and acrylic, you're actually learning a lot about oil, a lot about casein, and a lot about any opaque media. Does that make sense? Okay? So don't think it's just about these. I picked these mediums because I think they're good. The only one I'm not doing in here is oil, because then I start to step on painting people and they get all annoyed about it. Which, to be honest, I don't really care. But, okay. Let me see if this one's big.
Mike, if you go to his website.
See that, you guys? See that? That's the same technique we're using, or we're going to be doing. Classic techniques, been around, Beatrice Potter, all that, okay? This is just a more modern version of it. Go ahead, Camille.
I was just going to say, if you went to his website, you would probably find them, but you already found one, so it's fine.
Yeah, I just needed one. You can see here, right there in that ear, now that's a separation thing, and that's where you come in and start at the end. You go, I just need to separate. You hit little spots with a little bit of Pro Quill pen. That's another thing. You could use, if you want to put any ink on this at the end, and that comes at the end, you could use like a, you know, a waterproof pit pen, or make sure it's waterproof, or something like that. I would suggest that you get a bottle of brown ink and just Higgins ink and a Crow Quill. Crow Quills are like $3. Nothing makes a line like a dip pen, okay? So if you get, and it'll work, but if you get like a pit pen or something like that, or like a fiber tip pen, they just have more or less a dead line, whereas a Crow Quill or a dip pen or whatever has a nice, beautiful, buried line quality. It's really nice, okay? Does that make sense? But you could use a pit pen or whatever. I would just, it's so cheap to just use ink and watercolor. I think it's a nice thing to learn. And it's just, we're just kind of dabbling with it at the end. You don't want to outline everything. What we're trying to do is get the tone and the line to marry each other where you don't really see, you know, they just sort of marry each other. And it's not like an outline thing with a filled color. It's, you know, you're using your line to separate and so forth like that. So it's a lot more artistic. Does that make sense? Okay. What else? Any other questions? So I would start thinking about what you want to do for your, this is a demo from this class. That's acrylic. These are all demos from this class. Watercolor. Oh, here we go. Same technique. Watercolor pencil, right? And a little bit of ink. Acrylic right here. That's out of my sketchbook though. This is acrylic. This is over at Disney. They painted this on the entrance into the feature animation building. This is all acrylic. Let's make it closer. Right? Don't hate acrylic. Everybody hates acrylic, right? I love it.
I actually love acrylic.
Yeah, good. Who's that? Who said that?
It's me. Emerald's.
My stuff is probably way at the end.
The one thing I hate is watercolor. For the life of me, I just can't do it.
Okay, well, we'll fix that, right? Yeah?
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, did you ever learn it formally?
No, I mean, you know, I did it in a few classes here and there, but I just never was really good at it. The one thing I'm really good at is splatter paint, but I feel like everybody can do it, so.
It's just, you know what, it really, and look, I don't expect everybody to love every medium we do in here, okay? What I want to do is introduce you to them so you start finding it, okay? And then I also want it so you start understanding, like what I said, things like brushwork and all that kind of stuff. Foundations of painting. So when you go into digital work, it's not like I think you're going to do your whole career traditionally, unless you become a freelance illustrator or something. I'm aware of that, but I also am aware that if you don't understand these things, then you're making those crappy digital paintings that I see all the time that I find. I just look at it and I go, that's not, you don't know anything about painting, you know? And there's a psychology, because I'm always thinking about this right now, and I notice it in 107, which is a digital drawing class, where you get a lot of people who they think I finally figured this out, that they think that the Cintiq is some sort of extension of a video game console, where it's like, I'm going to get on here and I don't know how to draw or anything, but it's kind of like a video game console, and it's a bunch of tech, and I'm going to get on here and do stuff, and it's going to make all my stuff really good. And it's like, no, it isn't. It's just a drawing surface. It gives you a lot of tools that you can use to do things faster and all that sort of thing. And yeah, you can cheat a little more on it, but it's like you're never going to have a job or anything with that kind of thinking, okay? So the drawing doesn't change, the tool changes, and it's no different than a pencil or a paintbrush or whatever, but you need to understand the underlying fundamentals of this stuff, okay? If you don't understand that, then nothing's going to help you. I can't find any in here. I'll find some and I'll post them. Here's the mistake everybody makes with this, by the way, in every class. I go, okay, we're going to go through thumbnailing and ideation. So you're using your thumbnailing to ideate your ideas and go through a lot of them quickly, okay? And what people do is they go, okay, I'm going to have a donkey in my you know, funny looking donkey or whatever in my illustration, okay? Then they start doing character design, and it's like you don't even have an idea. Like you have no idea. And that whole thing, just so you guys know, that whole obsession everybody has with character design drives me absolutely up the wall, okay? I don't understand that. It's like, I like character design too, it's fine, but I mean, everybody thinks they're gonna be a character designer, and it's like, I don't even understand that. It starts to tell me like, you don't even care about art. You just, again, you wanna be a video game. It's an extension of video game thinking or Marvel movie thinking. Be a good designer, be a good illustrator, okay? That's what keeps you employed. And yeah, if you go and do character design, cool, great. But if you put all your eggs in that basket, you're going to be in trouble, okay? Because normally that's a rock star position, and normally you're not going to jump right out of college and go into it. Some people do, and some of that, and that does happen sometimes, okay? I got my dream job right out of college. I never expected that to happen, okay? So sometimes it happens, But don't count on that, okay? Be very broad, be very good at a lot of things. Then you can come in, you get a job wherever it is you want to work at. You want to work at Leica, let's say, you get a job there. And then, you know, they're seeing what you can do and they're going, oh, you can do that. Oh, you can do that. Okay. And then, you know, maybe the job you're working on ends and they go, your job's ending, and they go, and they go, what else do you need? Oh, we need a blah, blah, blah person. And you go, I can do that. And they go, really? And then look at your stuff and they go, oh yeah, you can do that. Okay. And you stay employed. Does that make sense? If you become one of these people that puts all their eggs in one basket, like I never defined myself as an entertainment designer. I never defined myself as a theme park designer. I never defined myself as a toy designer. I defined myself as an artist and a designer, and that was it. Okay. So when people came to me and they go, oh, you're a toy designer. I go, no, I'm a designer. Yes, I've done a lot of toys. Doesn't mean I'm a toy designer. I don't give two craps about doing toys. They're fun, but I'm just as happy designing a toaster. I don't care. Or an illustration or whatever. I don't care. So try and get into that mindset of liking designing and illustrating and all that kind of stuff because it's so much fun, right? No matter what you're designing, okay? I can't find this stuff. I'm looking for traditional stuff. You know, here's a good example of thumbnailing, okay? Like that's kind of where we want to go, right? So this is just, I was looking at Victorian architecture. Yeah, it was a demo for class. And then, you know, like right here is where I sort of define, this one right here is where I define what is Victorian architecture. I'm looking at the design elements and how I can push them. What's Victorian architecture? A lot of it's very narrow and very vertical, right? So I just squashed this idea a little bit and made it more vertical and more squashed and start to get it stylized. Then I start applying it to here. Then I realized that I want a curve in here. So I put this curved porch or whatever on it. Some of them have these interesting domey things. And then as a contrast to this verticality and thinness, I found some examples of buildings that are short and squat and very square. So now I could, between those things, I can start to go, oops, wrong way. This is some guy at McDonald's. Here, I can go, and then I go, okay, we're gonna do a 2-point layout of this. And then I decided, okay, well, what if I do the porch up close, and then I start putting the, and I put a little flower cart here, a vertical up here, that building that you just saw there, and I start putting it together. Does that make sense? That's how we're gonna approach it, okay? Very loose, very simple. And if you wanna start thumbnailing, that's cool. Actually, that'd be great, because I'd actually like for you guys to start having, like, hey, this is what I wanna do next week, at least that, okay? It might be a story from your own, you know, your own head. Or actually, it's better if it's a story from your own head. I don't want it from anybody else. And start thinking it through a little bit and what could be in that illustration. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Did you say how long the book is going to be?
The what?
How long did you, like our first project, the kids book, how long did you want it? How many pages? Or
when I start going into thumbnails?
Because you know you said our first project is going to be a children's book?
It's a 2-page spread.
Oh, just 2 pages.
Here, let me show you. I'm going to show you real quick. Because I have the same spread for my other class. The one that we were just talking about. And I'll put this up. Actually, no, it's not for this class. It's for this class. I'm totally spacing it. No, it's this one. Oh, it's this one, okay. It's going to be, this is good. I can show you this real quick. Okay. You guys can still see my screen, right?
I can still see your screen, but it looks like it froze or something.
Yeah, same for me.
Yeah.
Camille, is it froze? Can you guys see that page layout?
It's
No.
still on your
That was
Instagram.
frozen.
That's weird. Hey, hang on. It's still on my Instagram?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I blame Camille for this. All right, hang on. Let me do this. Okay, let's do this. Okay, how about now?
Now we see you.
Okay, whose mic is on? Okay, let's try it again. So now you see me, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And now you see a page layout, correct?
Yes.
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 So here's your page layout, the final, okay? Here, this gray represents your 1-inch tape border. This is your excess paper, this white around it, okay? Because you gotta have something to cut it out of, right? I like to use this excess white for color tests. Then you've got a gutter, that's this line right here, okay? And I will put this up. And then, so you think of this as 2 pages, but you're going across 2 pages, okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
2-page spread, okay? It's 11 by 17, okay? And I usually will probably put a couple of crop, oh, actually you don't need crop marks because you have the tape. And then what I do is I take it and I usually just freehand in my sketchbook or whatever for a while, start getting ideas. And then I usually, if I'm doing this, and I just guess at the ratio. I like to have a frame so I know. If you're gonna have any text in there, just think of where your text is gonna end up. And then I shrink these down sometimes, like that, and I put 4 up on a page. These are probably like 2 or 3 inches wide. And I just start doing really rough, we were doing these in class the other night, really rough, like thinking about how I can mask this all in as one dark, start where are people standing, what are they doing, just simple stuff like that, okay? And I don't
Do
even
we?
get any further than that for this. Go ahead.
Sorry. Do we have to buy the 11 by 17 paper for this?
No.
Or is okay, cool.
You're gonna when you transfer it to watercolor paper, you can just get a full sheet of watercolor paper.
Mm-hmm.
I usually just cut it in half.
Okay, and for like the drawing part of it, does it have to be like cartoonish, like a children's book, or can we do it in like our own style?
What's the style?
Just like realism kind of thing.
I don't know if you could pitch that.
Okay.
Problem with realism when you're talking about a kid's book, the only time that kind of works is if it's like a kid's book about Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Or I got a really cool one I just got by Sterling Hunley, and it's about Lincoln and his relationship to some writer, I can't remember. Really interesting graphic novel, right?
Mm-hmm.
The problem I have with quote unquote realism, and if you're hitting it, like if you're doing, let me show you this real quick. So these are 2-page spreads. You can see my screen, right?
It's frozen again, Mike.
Seriously?
I can see it.
You can see my webpage or a webpage?
No, just the,
No, just the Photoshop.
yeah, the Photoshop.
Oh, that's annoying. Hang on. This is what I hate about technical problems. This is why I like paper, Camille. Hang on. Now it's not loading. Hang on, I want to make sure. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, so now we have to stop share. Now you're seeing me again, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now let's go here. Now you can see my webpage, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So look, these are some of the pages from this book.
Oh wow, it's pretty.
Now that type of stylization works for a story like this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Super.
So you don't want us to add any words then?
You can put words in. Probably helps, actually. Okay, so look at this paint handling. Look at that. Anyway, so if you're talking about quote unquote realism, then I think you'd have to pick a subject matter that makes sense with.
Okay.
And I worry about that. I just worry about that. Okay. But I mean, I don't know where you're at with that. So we'll have to see that. So I can see that in the thumbnails, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would pick a subject matter. I mean, it's a 2-page spread, so you don't have to get crazy about just maybe
Right.
go, maybe it's more of an educational book. Maybe it's more of this type of story. Maybe it's more about, you know, I've seen books like children's books where they're talking about more like the civil rights movement or something like that, where you're going, okay, that kind of makes sense, right? Because, you know, maybe they don't want to stylize that. They want to be a little more reverential to the subject matter or something like that, and that's fine. But you got to pick the right subject matter. Like if you're going to have like a super kid story and it's all realistically drawn, that just starts looking weird. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's good for you. Like, what do you want to do?
I want to do comic books.
Like Alex Rossi kind of stuff?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, he works realistically, so I get it. So you're aiming for that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. He's very good at that, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's cool.
Okay, cool.
Give me a good subject matter that'll make sense with it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so that makes sense with that. Okay, what I was going to say is, because somebody asked about the 11x17 size. 11x17 is the final. When you're doing these thumbnails, and I know these are digital. Hang on, let me shrink this. Can you see my Photoshop again?
No.
Ugh.
Nope.
It's weird. It's saying sharing is paused. That's probably why it's doing that. I don't know why it's. I'll resume share. How about now?
Oh,
No,
Nope.
still the website.
Ugh, okay. Let's do it again. It's on a stop share. I don't know why it's doing that. So let's see if it does it again. Okay, now you can see it again, right?
yes.
Okay. These are probably, let's see. These are like 2 inches wide, probably, maybe. Yeah, probably like 2 inches wide. So whoever was asking about, so what I did is I just took my ratio and I just squashed it down. You don't have to do this. I'd actually prefer you didn't. When I do this in a sketchbook, I don't sit there and worry that the ratio is exactly perfect. I just kind of ballpark it, right? It's a little wider than it is tall, right? The reason you want to put that frame in there is you want to be working towards you don't want to do a really great idea and everything and you go, oh my God, this just doesn't work in this format at all. When you get a good idea, there's a lot of times what I'll do with a good idea, a thumbnail, is then I'll throw it on a copy or I'll throw it on a scanner and I'll blow it up a little bit. I'll put my trace over it and I'll start to refine things in it. Then I might blow it up bigger and refine it some more, okay? I'm trying to avoid redrawing it over and over and over again. Sometimes I have to. But when you're doing thumbnails, you should be just doing they should take you probably 5 minutes. Do another one. If you work big, here's where the mistake people make, and they do it every single class. I go, give me 5 pages of thumbnails, okay? And they go, they come in and I got one big drawing on one page, one big drawing on another page, one big drawing on another page, and it's like, these aren't thumbnails. These are like half-assed finished drawings. And all I care about is the idea. I don't care about the finished drawing, okay? We're nowhere near finished drawing. I care about ideas, okay? And then the other problem is when you work big like that, you're not doing a thumbnail anymore. You're doing a final drawing. And then you spend too much time on it. You spent an hour on it, which is ridiculous for a thumbnail. And then your brain goes, well, I have to fix it and I have to make it work because now I spent an hour on it. So now I'm going to spend another hour on it trying to make it work, trying to make this crappy idea work. Whereas when you do thumbnails, what you're learning is to throw your ideas out and nothing's precious. So you do something, you go, well, that doesn't work. And you do another one, okay? Then you go, oh, that kind of works, but I think if I move that over here, do another one. And then you just, and then you make a mistake and you go, oh, I like that shape right there. What can I put? Okay, that's kind of cool. And you just keep doing them and doing them and doing them because they're this big and they take 5 minutes, maybe 10 at the most if you're like really onto something, right? If you look at the ones that I just showed you, can you guys see my website again? I mean, can you guys see my Photoshop?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not spending a bunch of time on these. I'm spending 5 minutes on them, and finding things out, like this teacher being leaned back this way against the chair is way too extreme. It looks too menacing, okay? And I don't want that kind of thing, right? It's a kid's book. So then I go, okay, that doesn't work. I started liking this one here. That was starting to work. The kid looks silly. The alligator looks silly. The teacher's, you know, shocked about it. And then I can mass all the kids in the classroom together, right? Super basic ideas, okay? But I've got to have those ideas. Otherwise, I've got nothing, okay? And think about size relationships, you know, maybe a big something, and then, you know, relationships to size and contrast and all that kind of stuff, okay? But basically ideas is all I'm looking for. Does that make sense? So I like to go over the thumbnailing process, but we're talking about it enough. So what I'd like is, okay, so this page, if you're doing this in your sketchbook, I want at least 4 per page. So let's make this formal. We'll do some thumbnails for next week. And I'll put this under assignments. It's a 10-point exercise, okay? It's not a finished thing or anything. I just want ideas. I want at least 4 frames per page. And again, just freehand those frames. Don't get all hung up on any of this stuff. And then 5 pages, at least 4 frames per page. And if you can fit more on there, fit more on there. And they're small and they're fast, and I don't want a lot of work on them. And I do not want one big drawing on every page or big drawings. I want small drawings because this is just about thinking through ideas. Does that make sense? And by the way, if when I go and do attendance today, make sure that you're on there, okay? That I didn't miss you or something, all right? I'm not marking anybody late today, so if you were late or something, that's fine, okay? Next week, I'll start doing that. Does everybody understand this thumbnail thing?
Yeah.
5 pages, at least 4 frames, small, just ideas. That's all I want. Okay? Like whoever.
So you want a total of like 20 thumbnails?
At least.
Okay.
Now, what I always say, when my teachers gave me this kind of thing, and they go, okay, I want at least 4 pages or 4 frames, 5 pages, I did 25 pages. And I did 100 frames, okay? That's just, you know, because to me, it's like thumbnailing's fun. And also, I wanted to work through a lot of good ideas. And I wanted to come in there and go, okay, what's the good idea? If you do, this is what I always say. When I do the first, second, or third thumbnail, I always think, hey, that one's good. I think that's it. One of the first 3, okay? Then I go, screw it. I'm going to do 25 more. And I do 25 more. And almost every time when I get to that 25th one or somewhere in there, I look back at that one that I thought was good and I go, why did I even think that was good? And the reason I didn't know that is because I didn't have anything to compare and contrast it to and go, I didn't push my ideas far enough. That was a weak idea, but it looked good because I only had 1 or 3, okay? When I have 27, that doesn't look so good. Now I've got better ideas. And sometimes it is that one, but not usually, okay? Usually I think it's a good idea and it's not, okay? Or it's an okay idea, okay? We don't want okay. We always want to push ourselves. And when we get past this, you know, start working into the drawing part of this, because next week I still will go over a little bit about thumbnailing, but then I'm going to go into, we're going to go over your work. It actually makes it a lot easier next week. So I'm glad whoever brought this up about doing the thumbnails. I need your work to work on, okay? So that'll really help me next week because I can start working on you guys' work and adding in the demo and stuff I'm going to do about refinement and about thumbnailing and all that stuff. But we'll have stuff to discuss. So that'll help a lot, okay? If you have any, go ahead.
Sorry. Are we supposed to have these thumbnails done by next Friday?
Yeah.
And then is it for the children's book, or are we just doing it just from?
For the children's book.
Okay, gotcha.
Otherwise, you could keep doing thumbnails.
Is it like at least 20 of one children's book that you chose, or is it like maybe 3 different ideas of a children's book?
You can do as many ideas as you want.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes, you don't have to go. Here's what I don't want to see. I don't want you to go, okay, I'm going to do like that one we're doing in the other class. I gave them the text, okay? So it's a little different. And it's basically saying, if your teacher tells you bring something from nature in for show and tell, she means a rock, she means a pine cone, she does not want you to bring an alligator. So that's the text, right? So what I don't want to see is the iteration of the same idea, which means somebody going, okay, I got the kid holding the alligator, like I was just drawing that one, right? And the teacher's over here. And then the next one, they go, well, now I put the teacher over here, and the kid's holding the alligator on top of the desk. And now the kid's holding the alligator over here, and now the teacher's over here. Now the teacher's standing up, and the kid's holding the alligator. I don't want to see that, okay? You can do some of that. That's staging, and that's fine. But I don't want to see an iteration of the same idea. I want to see new ideas. And to your point, you might go, you might start exploring something and go, I don't like this as a story idea, and try something else. Okay, this is actually an opportunity, by the way, for you guys to design and something that you could be excited about illustrating. Okay, I do not want to see isms. Okay, I don't want to see manga isms. I do not want to see anime isms. I do not want to see Disney isms. I do not want to see Leica isms. I do not want to see Marvel isms. I don't want to see any of that stuff. I want to see your own thing. Does that make sense? Do not give me those idiotic anime expressions. It drives me crazy. Okay, everybody knows what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
You know, the big eyes and this. It's like, don't do that. I look at those things 90% of the time. I go, I don't even know what this expression is supposed to say, other than it's annoying. Okay, and if you like that stuff, it's fine. The reason I don't like it is it teaches a lot of bad drawing, a lot of bad expressions, a lot of bad design. If you like it, totally cool. I don't want you, or the other thing that I see where everybody draws the girls like Glenn Keane from Disney. Okay. He has a thing he does with the forehead, and then he drops the nose down a little bit, and it's really cool, but it's a Disneyism, okay? And I know it's hard to get away from, you can't get away from everything or whatever, but I want you to start, you really need to start exploring your own style, okay? So it's one of the things that I see as a weakness in the program, where people are basically copying something they like, and it's like, nobody's gonna pay you to do that unless you're working for like DCP, or you're working for a style guide thing. Or you're, that kind of thing, which is totally fine. If you want to do that, that's fine. But I think if you want to bring your own creativity to the table, I don't think that is fine. Does that make sense? You got to start finding who you are if you want to get hired. Okay, because if somebody opens up your the last time I was over Disney, because I always double check myself, and I say this in every class, I always double check myself. So I was over Disney last term, or last year, I think, over at feature animation, and I just double check myself because things could change. And I go, hey, if you see a manga stuff in a portfolio, what do you think? And she goes, I close the portfolio, I move to the next portfolio. She goes, I'm done. If I see that stuff in a portfolio, I'm done. Okay, that's not me saying it. And it's not just that, by the way. It could be you have a bunch of drawings of Mickey Mouse in there. They're like, okay, well, I don't want to see that. They don't want to see that kind of stuff. They want to see creativity. They want to see great drawing. They want to see design. They want to see process, what your process is. They want to see all that kind of stuff. They want to know that you're a vessel that they can go, I want to pop you on Frozen 4, and you're going to be able to jump in there and do it, and jump into that style and contribute to the style and do all that stuff. Does that make sense? And I always say, look, if you want to pay me, which people do have, obviously, to draw licensed characters, because I've made a lot of product for that stuff, then I'm all over it. It's fun. But you will never see that stuff in my sketchbook. I don't draw other people's stuff. There's no point in it, okay? Unless I'm goofing on it or something, okay? So I just want you guys to start getting your own style together and your own, and it just happens, by the way, you guys. It just falls out of the sky. Does that make sense? It really does. It falls out of the sky when you're in that sketchbook all the time experimenting, when you're doing things like this class and other classes, and that give you creative freedom, and you don't find it, it finds you through hard work. Does that make sense? Because I've talked to a lot of students, and I go, hey, what are you working on? Oh, I'm trying to find my style. It's like, good luck. It finds you. And usually when people say they're trying to find their style, it means I'm copying somebody. Like, stop doing that. Okay, it's enough of that. Okay, I want your own thing, and I'll help you with all that. Okay. And everybody has influences, by the way. I was super influenced by underground hippie comics in the 70s, okay? And once in a while, I still see that stuff in my work. I go, oh, there it is, okay? But I don't draw like Robert Crumb. I don't draw like Gilbert Shelton. I don't draw like Rick Griffin. I don't draw like Stanley Mouse. I don't draw like any of those dudes, okay? But clearly, I'm influenced by them. Does that make sense? Or all the Disney guys and all that stuff. All right, more questions? Anything?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So for this project or for the thumbnails,
Yeah.
I'm more of like a sketcher or more, I kind of do use acrylics sort of.
You don't need color right now.
What was that?
You don't need color yet.
Okay, so this is just, so we're just drawing it like just with pencil then.
Pencil, pen, whatever you want.
Okay, gotcha.
Loose.
So no details?
No details.
Okay.
Loose. Like what I just showed you. I mean, look how simple it is.
Yeah, okay.
I don't want any more than that.
All right.
As long as I can, and I'll talk about this next week, and I'll show you a few things around it. As long as I can, okay, so here's what you have to understand about thumbnail. It's your language. Okay, so when you go to, so just treat me like an art director. When you're an art director, all I'm looking for as an art director when people bring me thumbnails of ideas is I can understand them, they're clear, they're simple, and that's it, really. And that I understand the idea. That's all I'm looking for, okay? Like I've had people, and I always tell the story in my class, where you can make the mistake as an art director or a creative director or whatever, where you hire a drawer and not a sketcher, okay? You need both those skill sets. And I hired a guy one time, and I go, I used to do this all the time, everybody does. I'd go to somebody, I'd have a clipboard, I'd have a couple of sketches on it, and I go, hey, I need a bunch of ideas. Here's a couple I had, and here's the budget, and here's the age range, the demographic, all the information. And I go, and here's a couple of things I did. I was thinking maybe this. I go, you can use them or not use them, I don't care. But I need a couple of pages, like 5 pages of ideas, because I got a meeting at 2:30, okay? Then I came back at 2, and this guy was sitting there on his second drawing, right? 1.5 drawings. It made me insane, okay? He wasn't a sketcher. He was a drawer. And I don't care about, I just want a good thumbnail. That's all I wanted, and a bunch of ideas. So then I had to go into my office and in 20 minutes knock out 5 pages, enough thumbnails of ideas for this meeting, right? Otherwise I would look like a dick. And I went out and I told him, I go, look, I can't employ you, because what did I just pay you? I probably just paid you $1,000 for you to give me nothing. I can't do that. You got to go. Okay. And I told him, I go, look, you need to develop this skill set. You need to understand what this is. You don't understand this part of the business. Okay. Go learn that. Then on the other side of that, I inherited a team when I went to Disney Stores as a creative director, where they usually give you the lay of the land, and they tell you like this person, and they'll imply like maybe you should get rid of this person and all that. And I told my boss, I go, I'm not getting rid of anybody unless I know that they should be gotten rid of. I go, that I don't take that lightly. So anyway, I did a project with this woman named Shakay Hagnazarian, and she's over at, she just went over to Warner Brothers as a character designer. She's worked everywhere as a character designer. Monster talented, okay? So I did this project with her to see what her skill set was, and it was insane, okay? I mean, her skill set was insane, and she was super cool. And I went back to my boss, and I go, you know why she doesn't work? I go, because of you. I go, you didn't manage her correctly. I go, she's a secret weapon. I go, she's probably the best person on this team, and you wanted me to get rid of her? I'm not getting rid of her. And then she became a right-hand person. She was amazing, and I wish I saved those thumbnails. They were the most beautiful thumbnails I've ever seen that she did. All of them great ideas. She was the opposite. And what was the opposite about it is I went by her, I did the same thing as I just said. I said, I'm gonna need these things by 2:30 or whatever time it was. I happened to walk by her desk at like, I don't know, 10:30. And as I walked by her desk, she goes, hey, do you wanna see some of the thumbnails? And I go, really, Shakay? I go, it's been like 2 hours. Like you already, I go, all right. And then she has more than the pages I asked for, all of them great idea, all of them beautifully drawn, okay? And at the time I knew I should have scanned them, and just to keep them, to have them. I wish I had. Amazingly talented person, okay? All perception, okay? The reason she was perceived as not being good is because she was very overtly shy, okay? She was very inward, and she was very shy, and she didn't kind of project herself out there, even though she was more talented than almost everybody on that, probably everybody on that team, okay? And so presentation is very important, and perception is very important, because that old cliche about you get one chance to make a first impression is true. And her first impression had stuck that she was a wallflower, and she, people just didn't know how good she was, okay? So I always pushed her out a little more to get her to, for people to notice it, okay? And now everybody notices it. She works at Disney, she works at Warner Brothers, and she'd done that before too, okay? But she's more from the animation industry. So anyway, any other questions?
I have a question. So you said you want our like an original idea. So does that mean you want us like to create our own characters and own setting, or can
Your whole, I would look at it more your own scenario, your own scene. Okay. Now you can think of it, I always think of it as like if somebody gives me a project like this, I think of it as a little broader thing. I might give myself a paragraph and go, oh, this character is this person and here's the world and they're all exploring this and they're doing that. I'll just give myself that much. So and then this is a snapshot of one scene. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes.
So yes, you're going to develop your own, but don't do what I just said and go, ooh, character design. I'm going to go start designing characters. I don't want to see characters next week. I mean, other than the thumbnail, you can put them in your thumbnails. That's fine, right? That whole, you got to do this in a methodical way. You've got to start with your ideas, thumbnails, refinement, value study, color comp, painting. Does that make sense? That is going to help you to have consistent work, okay? And you need to be consistent because what I just said is what happens. Somebody comes to you, and it doesn't matter if you're the creative director or whatever you are. You have a problem to solve, and there's some sort of deadline on it, and you got to hit that deadline, man. And you cannot go into a meeting and go, you know what, man, I just wasn't feeling it today. I'm just not feeling creative. They're going to be like, you know what, dude? Later, and they're going to fire you because you're not delivering. You have to be able to create on demand. Does that make sense? And part of this process, hopefully, you'll start understanding out of your research comes a lot of your ideas. And out of just thumbnailing and ideating come a lot of ideas. When I don't have any ideas and I'm blank, I just start drawing. I do some research and then I just start drawing, okay? And research doesn't mean that I go and look at somebody else's work and basically start taking ideas. Research means like, who is this character? Where do they live? Oh, they live in the Pacific Northwest. What does that look like? Okay, that looks different. How does the Pacific Northwest look different than this forest behind me? You know what I mean? And then how can I start to stylize those things? How can I simplify, which is what I'll talk about next week, okay? So next week, you guys, I don't want a lot of pressure on you guys. I just want you to I just want to break the ice. I want you guys to start making thumbnails, start coming up with ideas. This is not, and I want you guys to understand something. I'm very serious about this stuff. I also like to have fun. I also like for you guys to have fun. I don't think there's any point doing this if it isn't fun, but it's also hard work, okay? And I expect you guys to produce. And I'm also not the type of person, and I think there's a place for this, but it's not me. I'm not the type of person who's gonna, when we do crits and a lot of these discussions, that wants to sit around and just tear everybody apart. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in constructive criticism. I'm interested in overlaying your work and correcting and showing you ways to make it better. I'm interested in sometimes going, I don't need to do anything to this. It looks awesome. Go, okay? All those things, knowing when it's finished, knowing when it's great, knowing when, there's a lot of things. But I want you guys, a lot of this is going to be discussion and going over your work and things like that. And I want you talking to me when I'm demoing. I want you guys talking to me about your work. I want you guys, interacting and, I'm not that type of person. I like to talk while I'm demoing and stuff. So when I'm demoing, man, if you go like, why'd you do that? Ask me, okay? And I want to have a lot of good conversation and stuff like that. And the reason I don't like to, that thing where people crap on people when they're having these discussions is then we're not going to have any discussion because everybody's going to go, everything, if I say this, is somebody going to think it's stupid? I don't care about any of that stuff, okay? There is no stupid. These are all ideas. You got to throw them out there. And you got to start getting used to throwing them out there, okay? Not being timid, not being the guy in the room who's always sitting there not throwing out ideas. And then you find, and I've had this happen too, you find out, you go, this person never contributes anything. And then I'll pull them aside and go, you're not contributing anything when we're in brainstorms and stuff. I don't get this. And then you find out they're just shy, okay? Then I look at their sketchbook and I go, oh my God, this person's a treasure trove of great ideas. And you got to kind of pull it out of them. And then once they get that confidence, they start doing it. And you're like, then they become a rock star. Does that make sense? You can't be a wallflower in this thing, man. You got to go out and toot your own horn and do your own thing, and make sure your good ideas are out there. Make sure, you're kicking everybody else's ass and you're thinking that way. And it's like, I want to be the best person in here. Does that make sense? And that starts here. That starts in school, okay? Whenever I went to a crit, especially at Art at Fullerton too. At Art Center, I went in there, who's the best person in this class the first time? And okay, that's the person's ass I got to kick all the time, okay? Gunslinger attitude. Go in and be the best in the class, right? Healthy competition. Healthy competition, not douchey competition. Does that make sense? We want to be the best, man. Don't shoot for anything other than the best. Does that make sense? Do not look at an artist and go, I want to be as good as them. Look at that person and go, I'm going to be better than them. I don't care who it is. Does that make sense? And if you work hard enough, you can probably do that, okay? Hard work. It's hard work. It's not magic, okay? It's talent and hard work. Right, Camille? Okay. Any other questions? If we do this right, it'll be fun, okay? Be a big learning curve, but it'll be fun, okay? And I want you guys, my big philosophy with teaching is that if I'm doing my job right, then you guys are having victories, okay? Which means, let's say on this thing, you might tank on this thing, whatever, but then you might kill it on the next one, okay? Or you might do a great job on this one where you go, I've never done watercolor before, but man, this looks pretty good. That feels good. I know what that feels like, okay? And that's what drives you forward, in my opinion, okay? Victories drive you forward. So hopefully if I'm doing my job right, I'm helping you do that, okay? You have to create it, obviously. But if I'm doing my job right and I'm giving you the right information and I'm kind of walking you through it, hopefully you'll get something that excites you and you go, okay, now I'm ready for the next thing. I want to do another thing. I want to feel like, I always, and I know this is a bad analogy, but I always say it's a hit of heroin, right? You're like, I want some more of that. I want some more of that. I want to feel good like that. You know what I mean? But it's a good addiction. You don't get fat from it. You don't get addicted to anything from it. All you get addicted to is goals, making good stuff. It's all good for you, okay? There's not very many things in life you can be addicted to that are good for you, right? This is, you know? If you're addicted to chocolate chip cookies, it's not a good idea, okay? Like Camille. Okay, where's Susie at? She's still in here? I don't know if I lost her. All right, let me
So
look
when you,
oh, go ahead.
sorry, when you want us to turn it in, do you want us to turn it into a PDF since it's multiple pages?
Oh, that's a good point. Okay, so you're going to have a folder. I'll put up the assignment probably today. I'm very spotty right now until I get my internet fixed. I'll put up a folder. Okay, so I'll put up this Zoom meeting, and then I'll have a link to a folder. What I want is you can put it up as a if you do it on paper, which I would kind of prefer, but you can do it digitally if you want. The thumbnails, whatever. Just take a decent cell phone picture of it. Boom. You can upload it as a JPEG. You can upload it as a PNG. You can upload it as a PDF. I don't care. And just make sure it's not a ginormous file like it's 72 dpi or whatever. I've had students upload like a 300 megabyte file, and it's like, that doesn't make sense. And then the file name is just your name. And then at some point, and I would use this time up. I'm going to put the folder up, but I don't expect to see these thumbnails in there tomorrow. I expect to see them the day before class or the morning of class within a half an hour of class. And I'll start taking them out of there. So you're going to see them disappear. Don't think it's Google. It's me. I'm taking them out. Okay. And because I have to load them onto my computer so I can do overlays and everything. Because next week I'll be back in my studio. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions?
So you're talking about turning in our sketchbooks. Like, will we turn pictures into you, or like
For what?
In the sketchbook?
For at the end of the term?
Yes.
At the end of the term, how did I do this last time? End of the term, I just had everybody go through it and take a picture of every page.
Okay, got it.
And it can be, as long as I can see them, it's fine. Okay, they don't have to be perfect. You don't have to scan them, because I understand, like, sitting there scanning all that stuff, it's a lot. You know, it might be 100 pages, you know, it's a lot. But you can just cell phone, it's fine, okay? Same thing with your thumbnails, cell phone, just make sure I can see them. I just need to see them, be able to work over them and stuff like that, right?
Okay.
In class, I would just, like I said, I would just pull some of them and do overlays, but I can't do that, obviously. But it works out pretty good on the Cintiq. It's actually pretty good. Make sense? Any other questions?
If we want to buy like 1 or 2 sketchbooks and then, you know, we have to turn it in at the very end, can we just, can we do that, or does it have to be 1?
Why would you want to do 2?
Well, I don't know. For me, I kind of like to see like the ones you recommended. I've never used before. I've used specific sketchbooks.
As long as it adds up to a reasonable amount of drawings, sketches.
In the better.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
As long as it adds up to a reasonable amount, which is, maybe a 100-page sketchbook,
Okay.
like those Piccadillys, that's a nice amount of pages.
Okay.
But I don't care if you work across multiple. I mean, the whole goal of this is that I want you experimenting, right?
Yeah.
So, hey, I want to try this type of paper. Hey, I want to try this kind of sketchbook. Yeah, go for it.
All right. Thank you.
And if both of them are half full, that probably adds up to one sketchbook, and it's fine, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I want you experimenting. I want you splashing around with paint in there. I want you trying different things. I want you to see, how this paint reacts with this and all that stuff. Okay. You need to explore mediums to understand them. Okay. And by the way, once you start understanding all of them, then you start doing things where you start understanding how to put things together in an interesting way that becomes your own formula. Okay. Mark English had a lot of really interesting, weird formula. All the guys from the 70s, 60s, mostly 60s, 70s, 80s, they had their own recipe, and the recipe was designed to, are you guys seeing me or my sketchbook? Or I mean, Photoshop. Oh, okay, let me get rid of that. They did that because they had to meet tight deadlines. And they're like, well, I like this oil look. Well, how can I get that oil look overnight? Because some of their deadlines, and still like this, the deadlines, Newsweek, that's timely information, or Time Magazine. That's timely information. So if they come at you for an illustration, they'll call you on Tuesday, and you go, well, when is this going to run? And they go, Thursday. And this is pre-digital. And not only is it pre-digital, it's pre-FedEx and all that stuff. So they would send, Drew Struzan used to live up here. And he talked about one time when he was working on a movie poster, and he was king of the movie posters. And he had I think a day to do a movie poster, which is totally insane. And they go, okay, we're going to send a courier to your house at 6 o'clock in the morning on Thursday. So on Thursday morning, there's a courier sitting on his porch, and he walks out with his painting, and theoretically wet, even though it's acrylic, so it'll dry fast. But and he hands this thing off to the courier, and the courier takes it straight to the whatever, the airport or whatever, and it goes off to New York or wherever. You know what I mean? Back in the old days, and now you scan them and you just email them off or whatever, however you do it. But anyway, they developed those recipes so they could work against fast time frames, because the illustrators coming out of the 50s and the 40s and the 30s all worked in like oils and stuff like that. Then they started doing a little bit of gouache. But those oil paintings, man, took forever. You know what I mean? Those Saturday Evening Post covers you saw that Rockwell did that were that big were 5 feet wide, okay? I mean, he painted huge, okay? And he had to develop a technique. He put shellac over his oils to dry them. He put a ton of cobalt dryer in it. He even said, he goes, there's no way these things are going to last, because I just did them to get them done, And he had to dry the oil really fast, okay? That's why they went to gouache, because gouache could emulate oil very quickly, okay? And we'll get into that when we get into gouache. Any other questions? We good? Everybody knows what they're doing? I might, every now and then, you guys, because I might do a quick digital video, or I might do a quick traditional video or whatever. Some of those are just small things. I'm also probably going to, I think I already said this, I'm going to put up the one on inking. I'm going to put up the one on basic washes. The one on inking I'm putting up because there's a lot of watercolor information in it and gouache information, okay? And I'm putting up the basic washes because I want you to understand basic watercolor washes, okay? They're super basic. And I'll put that up today. And then anything else I think of, I'm going to put up. Anybody, I might link to some people. You might see me put an announcement up, and then I'll add stuff onto it, like whatever I'm thinking about it and stuff like that. And I'll put up the assignment. Does that make sense? Okay, then, you guys. Wow, we went to almost 11:30. And if you have any problems or anything, you guys contact me, okay? I'm always available. Look, we're all locked up, man, right? So we might as well communicate, I'm sitting at home half the time. It's driving me crazy, actually. Okay, that's it, right? No more questions?
Nope.
Okay, you guys, we're going to do our thumbnails on Friday, right? 9 o'clock sharp. Okay? And we'll start doing this right. I'll be at home. Okay, you guys.
All right. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.